All right, hello everybody, my name is Tanner Kyler, and today I'm bringing you this 5-acre restoration area I've been working on, trying to bring back all of the native flora and fauna to this area. We have a lot to get through today, so this video might be a little lengthier than normal, but stick around to the end to make sure you see everything. And though it's cost quite a bit of money, it could still use a lot of work, and that's going to take a lot of effort and hours and purchasing plants and seed and those kind of things to grow from everything from seed. But we have a plethora of native plants going on in this area, and we've been combating invasive species, and we're going to show some of that in the video, along as what's happened over the past year and a half since I've made the last restoration video. So if you come with me, we're going to go talk about this large oak standing behind me. So last year we had one of the worst storms that has ever came across this property, and it actually took down a couple mature trees. Took down a large mature pecan tree that was probably pushing 100 years old in our front yard. That was pretty sad to see. And it also did a lot of damage to some of the other plants within the restoration area. But with that said, it is going to boost biodiversity into the future. So this large oak behind me, this is a pin oak. This pin oak is probably well over 100 years old. Been here for a very long time. And if you pan up, you can see how much taller it is up there. But there's only one branch that survived during that storm. So this tree used to be much fuller and nicer looking, but last year when that storm came through, it lost several large branches on the top of this tree structure. Now those branches have fallen back down to the restoration area and have already begun decomposition. So they are helping boost biodiversity through those large branches, which weigh several tons. Those will slowly be broken down by microbes like bacteria and fungus. It'll also give homes for a lot of insects. Now what's cool about this tree now is it has a large split down it, and that split will most likely rot with time. What we lack in our North American forest nowadays, because of commercial logging and dozing like has been done here, we lack a lot of large, mature, hollow trees that are kind of on the brink of death. These trees are the ones that support the most amount of biodiversity, because as this trunk becomes hollow, we'll get a ton of different things using it. One species that I can think of off the top of my head is the chimney swift. Now the chimney swift needs old growth forest to survive, but it did figure out a loophole. So chimney swifts use chimneys now because they are hollow inside and they give them the perch support. Now they sleep vertically. They have their nest vertically because they evolved to live within old growth forest and these large hollow trees like this one. Other things like bats and owls and other birds can also use it for nesting. So this guy is not only far from dead, but is far from not helping the ecosystem around it. Something that I had to put in perspective one time was having somebody ask the question, is like, do you think a tree lives its whole life just to die to give back to the forest? Because when a tree dies in a forest, it is far from over. That is where the real life begins. Everything that you see from insects to fungus to bacteria need these dying and decomposing trees. So though new young trees coming up are important, medium-aged trees are important because they will one day become old trees. The oldest trees are the most important to the forest because they give back a lot of nutrients. They drop a ton of branches and leaves which decompose, giving life to a really cool spectacle that actually happened last night and has been happening for a while, which are the fireflies. And with that, I'm going to throw some videos and photos that I took last night from all of the fireflies living in this area. Now the numbers have quadrupled since when I was first starting this project. This area, this whole area you're looking at right now, every last tree, every last flower was all a big lawn about 7 years ago. So about 7 years ago, this was all being mowed periodically. And then I kind of stepped in and said, hey, why are we mowing this? Let's turn this into a restoration area or a park or a garden, was kind of the way that I presented it to get people on board with doing it. But now it is coming up with riparian forest near this large creek right down below us. This creek down below us is a rather large one, and when it floods, the water actually can come up to where we're standing right now. So this entire area is a floodplain. That also makes it extremely important habitat because the majority of biodiversity lives within a floodplain. Or just a really cool spectacle. Make sure to comment and tell me what you think about those. we're going to move on and kind of start touring the other several acres. We're not going to get to the entire property today, but I'm going to try to get a good majority of it filmed and documented to put in front of here to show you guys what's happening and what I've been doing over the past few years. And with the storms that took down this tree, brought plethora of rain. Last spring we had one of the rainiest springs we've had in my entire life, and this year is once again a very wet spring. But with all that moisture, even though those storms are really rough and have a lot of energy behind them and can blow things over and destroy things, they also bring a ton of life, because water is the stuff of life, and without it, none of this could exist. And so every time there's a bad thunderstorm, I may be sad that we lost something like the top of this tree or that large pecan, but I'm also extremely grateful that we're getting precipitation to help boost all of this into early spring, into late spring. And so in the months of April and May, we get our largest thunderstorms into early June. It is now mid-June now, and everything is going crazy here. Late spring, it's almost early summer, and early summer, late June is where everything really starts to take off. So this video, after this video in the next few weeks, we'll get even more flowers than we even have now. The most important thing to this forest, I believe overall, other than getting rid of invasive species and putting back the native plants, is fire. This is a fire-dependent ecosystem. Even down here on these large creeks, fires are important to keep the understory from getting too thick, to clear brush out of the way, and to make way for a whole new plethora of life, and to keep these savannas alive. So within this restoration area, we have a ton of different species of tree. As you probably saw in the video before, I did plant a couple loblolly pines, which aren't directly native to here. They're probably the only thing in here that aren't a direct native to this area. But I planted those a few years ago before I knew any better, and they're actually doing quite well. And if they ever become an issue, we can always cut them down, let them rot, and give life back to this area. We also have pecans, hickories, pin oaks, black oaks. I just planted a black cherry right here, and we have a ton of other things, including sycamores, black willows, and a few other oak species that I haven't even begun to identify. We have Osage oranges, red mulberries, which are our native mulberry tree, and we also have Kentucky coffee trees and a few other locust and gum species. And starting right here, though, with the prairie that we've talked about, this area was burned this year. So I only burned about 1 acre of the 5 acres this year to keep this area right here, which will be the prairie area of this, alive. We're going to have prairie, we're going to have savanna, we're going to have wetlands or marshes down here, along with riparian forest that's right along the edge. So this area is basically a biodiversity powerhouse that I'm using to collect and protect certain species of plants that are really going on the downhill, which is also boosted biodiversity of our solitary bees, our moths, our butterflies, our small rodents like voles and moles, and mice like deer mice. We have gotten plenty of native species that have come in here, and I'm also going to show here in a minute when we go down, I'll throw in some pictures of a trail cam I have set up here showing all of the cool life that has been visiting here. Now the trail cam doesn't pick up smaller creatures, but it does pick up things like deer and turkey, which we have gotten here for the first time this year. The first time this year within the restoration area, I have seen turkeys coming back, which is a really cool feat because they need forest and prairie and savanna to survive. And then if we get a chance, we'll move over to an area I call the secret pond, which is another about a ½ acre bubble of protected area moved over across the hay meadow, disconnected from this, but kind of connected into this, where we have beavers moving in. So where I burned, we had a lot of cool native species of grass along with a lot of invasive species of grass. And so a lot of these right here are serrata, Bermuda, crabgrass, Johnson grass, which is the worst of all of the invasive species in this area. And so I've been selectively spraying herbicides onto those because though I don't agree with using herbicides, in some cases it's the only way to get rid of these invasives like the Johnson grass and the non-native Bermuda grass and serrata. So right here, I actually have sprayed some, and I've been planting native grasses and wildflowers in the place to hopefully come up and do better. And so right here, we have some big blue stem that I've transplanted into here. I have wild bergamot, we have prairie comb flowers, Ohio spiderworts, willow leaf sunflowers, switchgrass, silphium, which actually is popping up from seed, and I don't know if you can see it here, but that is really cool, or the compass plant, which has a massive root system on it that's really going to help hold this soil together. We have fleabane and American giant ragweed as well, which isn't a favorite of mine because it causes allergies, but it is a native species that helps the things like bobwhite quail. And that brings me to my next point about the amount of birds that have been brought into this area. This is a bird sanctuary. We have so many different species that I'm so excited to share, but we're gonna move on with that, and then I'll show those here in a little bit with the trail cam photo. All right, so you see me doing this funny dance here. It's because I'm standing in a highway full of harvester ants. Now, harvester ants are a venomous species of ant native to North America, and they are on the decline because of invasive species like fire ants destroying their territory and taking their land. So right here, we have a massive mound that's been here for a better part of a decade. Even when we mowed, it was still here. And a lot of people dislike the harvester ants and kill them, but I'm gonna give you a few reasons to why they're so important. Now, they are venomous, like I said, and their stings do hurt a bit. And if you get stung too many times, it can cause issues. But there are plenty of reasons to keep them around. So one of the main reasons is soil aeration. Their tunnels go vast, deep into the ground, allowing air to transfer into the soil, giving life back to these plants. You can see a lot of these plants directly around, which are the Johnson grass, the extremely invasive grass, are dying. That's because I sprayed them. Opening this up to plants like this Asclepia tuberosa, the butterfly milkweed, which is going to help give life to the monarchs and countless other species of pollinators. Right now, they're all over it. And I'm moving my feet, just trying to keep them from crawling on my shoes. This is the best way to keep them from getting you. But if you don't stand directly near their mound like I am, they won't mess with you. They also are important for seed distribution. So in the prairies, they go out, they collect seed, they drop them all over the place and help scatter native seeds all about. They also take minerals from deep in the ground and bring them up to the surface and concentrate it near their mound, creating unique habitats that only certain species of plant and animal can use. They are also the main food source for the endangered horny-toed lizards. So with that, I think that's plenty of reasons to leave them and let them be. Like, this has been here for 10 years and I've never been bit once because I normally just don't stand near them. But I have planted this Asclepia tuberosa here and some prickly pears, and they don't seem to mind. The fires also help by clearing out debris, and that always makes their mounds do better. So if you'll look, we also have things like Maximilian sunflowers and some native grasses coming up. And look behind it, you see all this Johnson grass. This whole area was solid Johnson grass last year, and I've been really targeting it to try to open it up to species like this Asclepia viridis, these Maximilian sunflowers, which are coming up all over the place because I scattered seed, and hopefully those will get up and compete with it and push it out with time. We also planted switchgrasses, giant goldenrod, wild bergamot, and a ton of other species of nightshade and things like the American giant ironweed and Jerusalem artichokes as well for food, all throughout this plot to help boost biodiversity and get rid of this invasive grass. Now, these things also, like sawtooth sunflowers and American giant sunflowers that I planted down here near the marsh, will help colonize that area. There's also tall goldenrod and a ton of different species of aster. There's yarrow, and there are, right next to me actually, is a buffalo gourd that I just recently planted, and it's trying to grow up and get bigger, putting nutrients inside of its tuber to hopefully grow years to come as we're trying to get this area to be completely native plants. But that will take time and will never be fully done because these invasives are just so persistent. Right here we have some willow leaf sunflowers. We also have the seed pod of Asclepia tuberosa. One of the ways you can tell it's a milkweed is by this white latex. This is what the baby monarchs consume to make them toxic, to keep them from eating, birds from eating them. But if we crack it open, which I'm going to, I don't think these seeds are ready. No, they were almost ready, but there's a ton more. This is our most common milkweed here that I didn't even plant. It just blew in and has been doing great. This is Asclepia viridis, the green antelope horn milkweed. and they have these seeds all over. These actually are very close to being ready. So I'm gonna toss those back. Some of them might germinate. We have tall goldenrod, giant goldenrod popping up all over the place, pale dock, and then we also have invasive curly dock that I've been battling with because they like the exact same habitat. So one of the other issues that became present once we started spraying out the Johnson grass was another invasive species, which is called Cerisa lesbidiza. We have native cerisas. These are not it. These are from Eurasia, and they are they're probably the second worst invasive species to this area behind the Johnson grass. These cerisas will take over and destroy all of your prairies, outcompeting it. And one of the only ways to get rid of it is also herbicides. So this fall, I'm gonna go spot spray herbicides to help control these guys and to boost the biodiversity of things like this white yarrow here and allow those to grow instead of the cerisa and keep it from spreading out, because if one plant can produce 10,000 seeds a year, which is a headache and a half. All right, I lost my cameraman because she hates ticks, so I get it. So I let her go. I'm gonna film the rest of this by myself, and then she'll continue recording here in a minute. But here we have some American giant ironweed right here. This is a beautiful plant. It's gonna have purple blooms all over it, and that is one of the main ones that's really spreading in here. Right over here, we also have passion vines, which are the host plant to the frituary. I'll throw a photo of those guys in there. But right here, I actually put a metal cage where I sprayed the Johnson grass out to allow this passion vine to prosper, grow up, and it'll produce fruit for us to eat in the fall. And if we don't eat it, the birds definitely will. The ticks are terrible down here. That's one thing about not burning. And here are all the beautiful birds. Right here we have a tall thistle, which is a native thistle that have really helped colonize and give a lot of late summer pollination. So this restoration area, I'll do another video in the fall, is much prettier whenever during late summer when everything is in bloom. But this tree right here has been, this is a dead pecan tree here, but it actually has been the stand for my trail cam. And this is where I'm going to throw all those photos of the trail cam in here. I actually took it down this morning because there's malfunctionings happening with it, and I can't view it from my phone, so I'm going to hook it up to my computer, and I'm about to throw all the photos that we've gotten that I think are, worth sharing on the restoration area. A lot of deer have been using this, which is one of the really cool things. There are ticks on me, I'm sorry. It's hard to film with ticks crawling all up on you. All right, so here comes a bad decision on my part. I'm about to be covered in ticks, but I really want to show you guys this amazing specimen tree named after my late grandma, Marilyn. So Marilyn is a ancient sycamore tree, at least 300 to 400 years old. And she has actually fallen over. After they dozed, the soil became soft and the tree actually sank to one side, but then shot a branch up to help correct itself, and she still survives today. She keeps sinking more and more as the tree behind her dies and it's rotting. That is what's supporting her up right now. But I really hope with time she can recorrect herself and she won't fall over. And if she does fall over, she can recorrect herself up and not die. But I'm going to show you this beautiful tree. Look at these beautiful pink flowers right here. I'm not even sure what species that is. I'm constantly finding new species of plant in here that I've never seen before. But I'm going to get right up on here. Woo! Oh, I can just feel the ticks all over me right now. So she has Virginia creeper crawling on her, which is an excellent species for moths and butterflies. We have coral berries in the shaded area, but look how beautiful she is. And I'll show a wide shot of her from up there on top of the hill. But just look at this. Look at how ancient this tree is. She has moss and lichens growing on her. She has just been here and seen the test of time. If a tree could speak, this one would have a lot of stories. She is absolutely giant. She's one of the biggest sycamores we have on the ranch. The biggest one actually isn't within a restoration area, but is still alive and thriving. But she is a close second in size. If you can just see my body, her diameter is every bit of 4.5 to 5 feet wide, about 4 feet up the tree. And I'm just going to kind of squat down. There's actually mushrooms growing out of the side of her right now. I'm really worried that she's getting old and going to die soon. That is a beautiful beetle. Let's look at her up close. Look at how massive this tree is. There's my hand laid on it. I'm not short, by the way. beautiful wildflower I was talking about. There's just so much cool life in here, and it always has something to share with us. We have wing stems all here, which are a native shade-tolerant sunflower. I actually think it's related to the giant ironweeds. It's also called yellow ironweed. But with that, we have pokeweeds. And I'm going to show a few photos of what this area looked like last night whenever the fireflies were just lighting it up. Right there is a Kentucky coffee tree. And that one has really exploded this year. That's going to be a big tree soon. These pecans are around 15 years old. And look at them grow. They were actually mowed down, but the root system was really old. And so they shot up really quick. So in 8 years or so, they've shot up to 25, 30 feet tall. I'm gonna just show you guys the walkway the deer are on. This is where all the trail cam photos were taken, out here in this large sunny area. And right here, we have the marsh. The marsh is where all of the tall goldenrod is growing, and there's a ton of pale dock. The only issue is we have a field of Johnson grass over there. But right here, you can see I've taken a big toll on it, and with time, we'll hopefully be able to get rid of all of the Johnson grass. Here where all the black willows also grow, and I've been coming through, limbing the lower limbs and laying them down to create beaver dam analogs all throughout here. And as you can see right here where all those plants are growing, that is a thin, shallow glade of water, and there is a dam I built right there to back water up this direction. And then with time, I really hope that we can get beavers in here to start helping me do that job. Here's some snow on the mountain that I planted this year. It's doing great. And now I'm going to go around and show you some of the flowers that are in bloom. All of this fleabane growing here, doing really great. A really underrated wildflower that does well in basically any condition. Here we have a giant goldenrod that I planted this last fall, and a Liatris spicata coming up and blooming here as well. We have white yarrow, American giant sunflowers, and Maximilian sunflower after Maximilian sunflower. That's going to really help boost the biodiversity in this area. And look at those Asclepia tuberosas and all the butterflies using them right now. So the Asclepia tuberosa is in bloom right now. We're just gonna go around and show all the things that I've been doing up in the yard area that's not within the restoration area, but is all native species. That is a native pepper vine that'll hopefully one day cover this trellis along with that trumpet vine I planted on the other side. Here's the Ohio spiderworts. There's some right here. There's another one right here. We also have a purple coneflower. It has several blooms on it. You can see that bloom about to come, but that one right there that's already in bloom. I have some stiff goldenrod coming up that I've put here, transplanted from an area where it was going to be killed and sprayed. So I planted it there to help, add some biodiversity to this area. We also have wild bergamots everywhere. Sorry about the wind. I'll try to get rid of it whenever I'm editing. Switchgrass I grew from seed and planted here. That's doing absolutely miraculous. I think switchgrass can be planted instead of bamboo anytime because it does get rather large. Some of the areas within our garden, this is where we produce a lot of our food. We have a Liatris spicata here going into bloom right here. Absolutely beautiful sunflower. We have some apples and some non-native things along with my mother's garden. Here we have a ton of wildflowers, including tickseed coreopsis. We have plains coreopsis going into bloom, some that are about to bloom now. Golden crown beard, which are these beautiful small sunflowers over here, which are allelopathic, so be careful by planting those in certain areas. We have these tall annual sunflowers growing, Liatris spicata, and actually we have our first, you can see there are just a ton of different species coming up all throughout here. Prairie coneflowers, Liatris spicata, we have meadow blazing stars, Jerusalem artichokes, and then a ton of other aster species that will bloom later in summer, like that guy here. We have giant goldenrod. I'm not sure what species of sunflower this is, but it gets really large and is beautiful. Pollinators love it. A ton of Maximilian sunflowers that'll be blooming this fall. Here we have some eastern prickly pear, these absolutely giant Maximilian sunflowers. All three of these are a clone. They'll get about 8 to 9 feet tall by late fall, and the entire thing will just be completely covered in flowers. I'll throw a clip of them in bloom last year, but they should be even prettier this year. We'll leave sunflowers, some fun things like a cold hardy banana. We have false indigo here, some dahlias that my mom would like. We have some figs to eat. We also have bee balm growing everywhere. We have some gladiolas for cut flowers. Right here we have a ton of them coming out of bloom. These are Monarda, the bee balm. These are a cultivar variety that doesn't get very tall. We have Liatris spicata. We have both whites and purples blooming here. A giant wild bergamot right here. And I'm going to go move over here and show you what those guys look like when they're in bloom. Before we get there, we have an elderberry that's in bloom. This one was absolutely beautiful, but it's all turning into berries now. I'll throw some clips of the elderberries in now as well. There's Grogoom. I saw caught a tortoise out here tromping around looking for some food. Here we have a bunch of white yarrow in bloom that'll seed like crazy and spread. Wondering what all these wires are. They're to support a bat box, which hasn't had any inhabitants yet, but I hope in the near future we'll get bats. Just look at those flowers there. Beautiful. Here's what we burned this year to open up the prairie to allow everything to grow magnificently. This is a wild bergamot that is in bloom currently. It's my first one that started blooming and has so many more to bloom on it. So it'll be really a spectacle to see when all of them are blooming. We have probably about 200 clumps of these growing around here. So when they all go into bloom, like these two back here, it'll be just a spectacle to see. We have some silphium or compass plant growing right here. This is my largest clump. I'm so happy that it's doing well. We have some ashy sunflowers. Sorry about the wind again. We have black-eyed Susans like right over there, blooming. And then a ton of native Indian grasses, big blue stem, switchgrass, and little blue stem growing in our main. This is actually a remnant of where the prairie used to be. So this area still has them. We have a blazing star popping off right there, coming up. We also have the large sycamores that are babies from the Maryland tree, that giant you can see right here in the clip. This one actually is about the same height, the one that actually broke off last year that we started the video with, but that one's about 30 feet lower in elevation right along the creek, why she got so big. Here we have black-eyed Susans and white yarrow blooming all along here, along with Maximilian sunflowers along the chicken coop. There's another one of my elderberries in bloom next to a bald cypress growing. Look at that elderberry. That is just so beautiful. This one was just as beautiful when it was in bloom. I really think common elderberry should be a much more used plant. Extremely fast growing. I planted this plug here 2 years ago and look at it now. It's absolutely giant. And it's actually forcing this bald cypress to grow taller. American ironweed. We have wild bergamot, stiff goldenrod. Right here we have some lemon bee balm that's in bloom currently. Look at this guy. We have a verbena growing here. I'll show one of those that are already in bloom here in a moment. We have more black-eyed Susans, more stiff goldenrod. We have Joe Pye weeds. I'm not sure what species that is, but it is native. We have switchgrass, Illinois bundleflowers, purple cone flowers, annual sunflowers, snow on the mountain. If we move right over here, we'll look at some more stuff that's going on. We have a chinkapin oak that I planted there, Osage orange right there. Right here we have prairie cone flowers, along with this Liatris spicata, which actually has a weird genetic mutation giving it a lot of blooms here at the top. Isn't that cool? There's a butterfly on there. More of that wild bergamot. We have a queen of the prairie, another silphium, along with some Liatris popping up there and there. We have more grasses. This is the purple top grasses. They're native. We have cabbage coneflower, wild bergamot, or bee balm actually. That one will be red when it blooms. Different species. Some big blue stem that was planted here. This is the big blue stem clumps I've planted to help take over this area that's been sprayed. We have Maximilian sunflower here. This is a real big one as well. St. John wort in bloom here. Absolutely beautiful flower. It's been blooming for about a week now, and it still has a lot longer to go. And the pollinators just love this guy. We have spotted Liatris, which is a native Liatris here. It doesn't get near as tall as spicata, but is absolutely beautiful. We've been getting quite a few of those planted. We have a stiff goldenrod right there as well. We have snow on the mountain growing out here, Maximilian sunflowers, more big blue stem. And then right here, we have one of these actually seeded and spread. We have a pink swamp milkweed, which we also have over here in these patches. We also have some white sage, which is the native sage species, and it has the best fragrance to it right now. Now that it's hot, it's releasing terpenes and other things into the air that just give a cocktail of chemicals that really just fill your nose full of a pleasant scent, but it's actually to deter insects. Right here we have Maximilian sunflowers, we have asters growing, Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes. We have a giant switchgrass growing here in the middle, along with all these false sunflowers in bloom right now. Look at these guys. They look absolutely beautiful. They're one of our earlier blooming sunflowers. They're not actually in the Helianthus genus, they're Heliopsis. So related, but not too related. We have a southern magnolia as a specimen tree here, as well as a ton of other things going on right over there. We have a ton of native species growing in here that I'm gonna get to in another video. Box elder, it's a native tree right here, one of our native maples, absolutely beautiful in the fall, kind of weak wooded though. Right here we have some more grasses that I planted along with all these primroses as well, which are also known as pink ladies. I also have some videos of them this morning whenever they were more in bloom. When it starts to get hot here in the later afternoon like it is right now, they start to wilt. This area right here is a marsh that is on the side of this hill. There's a drainage here that drains down through this. All the plants here help absorb that water and help absorb any pollutants that come out in it. Right here we have a white swamp milkweed that is going crazy. It has one bloom about to open, but it has dozens of branches, and each and every one of these tips will have a flower on it. We also planted some cultivar swamp mallows along with some swamp mallows I grew from seed, like this one here and some of these others. So we'll have swamp mallows growing inside of this area. We also have a bald cypress I planted right here along with the bald cypress right here. And then this is actually a sycamore that I dug up out of one of the garden beds like 3 years ago. And because it has a limited water supply, this is only a 3-year-old sycamore tree. You can see it's going crazy. And a lot of the marsh plants that are down here in the bottom, like the hemp dogbane and a lot of the other sedge species, are moving their way up here and sporing into this area and helping colonize it and help filtrate this water before it gets to any major body. So right here, we have an area that I put 6 plugs of giant goldenrod in there. At the time, I didn't know what species of goldenrod they were. They were given to me by a friend. I stuck them in here, and we also have some tall goldenrod and some sunchokes as well. But these are one species that I've been doing the Chelsea chop with, to chop them to keep them from getting so tall, and it'll make them get more blooms later in the year. But this area right here has been colonized by the giant goldenrod, which gives a ton of food in the late fall to our pollinators. And it is an aggressive species, and I don't recommend it to be planted right up close to your house. More on the back fence of your yard or somewhere out like the restoration area I was in is a better area for it. But being here, there isn't anybody here to really complain about it, so we have it planted anyways. We also have mountain mint, which it is absolutely amazing and has a ton of blooms on it that the pollinators really enjoy. And as we move down through here, we have asters, tall goldenrod, we have tall thistle as well, some hollyhocks that were planted for fun, some purple coneflowers, some black-eyed Susans, which are different from the other ones I was showing. This is Fulgida, Rebecca Fulgida, not Rebecca Harada. Right here we have an Adam's needle yucca, some stiff goldenrod, some prickly pears that are native to southern Oklahoma, along with a blue spike yucca, which will get quite large there. We have some switchgrasses, juniper that was in another bed that I moved here. I also put a cow skull to kind of give this a desert look, because we also have some false red yuccas here, which aren't native to this area, but definitely help out our hummingbirds and other things. All right, so this area right here used to be lawn, but it's slowly being converted to native wildlife habitat. I've already seen baby rabbits in here this year, along with a ton of different pollinator species, voles, other things like that. It is one of my most ambitious areas that I've done because it is so large and very close to the house. But we burn it every single fall to keep it from being a risk of fire danger into the winter. But we have a ton of different species coming up in here. And I'm actually going to grab the camera and just kind of walk around through it and show you guys up close. Here we have an aster that's been coming up year after year. We have golden crown beard all throughout here. We have Liatris spicata. We have prairie comb flowers, annual sunflowers, Liatris spicata again, giant goldenrod. We also have tall goldenrod thrown in through here. We have lemon bee balm, which the bees absolutely love, and they spread like crazy through seeds, so I'm hoping to have a lot more next year. We have a tall goldenrod here, or a giant goldenrod, along with a pink giant swamp milkweed. Pink swamp milkweed, not giant. Right here we have a prairie comb flower in bloom. Absolutely beautiful. My shadows on it. We have purple cone flowers, Maximilian sunflowers as well. We have yarrow in bloom. This is all the stuff that's blooming in late June, and you can also see the things that are still to come into the later parts of the year. We have stiff goldenrod, an aster that my buddy gave me. I'm not sure what species it is, but it is native, he said, because he gave me a bunch of different species. Right here is some purple cone flowers growing. We have velvet weed. We have false sunflowers that have been transplanting from the other beds because they're spreading through seed like crazy. We have wild bergamot popping up, more velvet weed. We have a hybrid sunflower here. I'm not sure what the blooms will look like yet, but it should be spectacular. We also have giant blue sage that I planted there, some big blue stem, another patch of big blue stem, and I've made these little trails through. We have little blue stem, and this is actually where the large pecan tree I was talking about that blew over was. And so you can see her trunk here, but she's not actually dead. This is her babies coming up. These are all coming up from the rootstock. And so hopefully with time, those will grow up well. This is also a cultivar variety of pecans that have larger nuts on them. Flies are getting me, so I'm having trouble recording. Sorry about that. Right here we have some more asters, some prairie cone flowers here, some tall thistle. And then this is where some really cool stuff is as well. We have more prairie cone flowers, but then right here we have verbena. Verbena is a native wildflower that is not super common anymore. And I've gotten a few clumps growing around here and they're spreading through seed. We have some Indian blanket flowers here as well, along with some black-eyed Susans. This is the Harada. It has fuzzy leaves. The Falgita has slick leaves. This is a sunchoke growing here. And you can see all this horseweed. This stuff right here is actually a native wildflower. It isn't super showy, and it is a remediation species. So as the soil gets healed, it will disappear with time after a few years. But right now, it is just taking over this entire area, and we'll have a ton of small white blooms. Each stalk will have about 1,000 blooms. They're teeny tiny, but the pollinators do love them, so I'm leaving them to grow this year. Over on this side of this patch, we have a large wild bergamot about to go into bloom here. We also have some native big blue stems that I didn't plant. So actually this area was mowed for so long, I figured there would never be a native grass coming up in it. But after that pecan fell over, so this is actually, this bubble is the radius of how big that pecan was. So now you get an idea of how big that tree was. And when it blew over, I decided to turn it into a meadow or a prairie. We used to mow it and it was full of shade tolerant plants, but now we have to swap and put all these sun tolerant plants in here and partial shade plants as well. And these guys were already here. They've been mowed over for probably a decade. And then as soon as we stopped mowing, the big blue stem came right back. Here's a small cactus garden we have. It has some native cactus, some non-native, but they're all native to North America. So we have a ton of stuff. We also have some Liatris spicata that I put in there for fun. And then right here in the middle of the yard, I did mow over this black-eyed Susan, and look how beautiful it is as a little yard ornament. There's that patch, and you can really just get an idea of how big that tree was by me standing on it earlier. And if you look, that tree's about 9 feet tall. So it obviously is a very wide patch, probably 45 feet across. Here closer to the house, we tend to put more specimen plants. Now I do have things growing right up next to the house that are native species that just blew in from over across in the pastures. But we also have species like winterberries, which aren't exactly native to here. But right over here on the far edge of our yard, and this is the largest mowed area we have, I decided to give about a 10-foot buffer in front of this barbed wire fence between where the cows are and this yard is to give back to wildlife. And we're going to show you this area I plowed up, and I'll show some clips of us plowing and seeding into it here. And then you can look at it now and just see how terrific it really has done. Okay, so now that we've got this plot kind of cleaned up, we're going to start putting in these different bubbles of different grasses. So here in this bubble, there'll be little blue stem, and then we'll make like a pocket here of something else, some other native species, and then we'll do another pocket of something else, and then another pocket, and then maybe another pocket of little blue stem, and then like some switchgrass pockets over here, and we're going to make them bubbled and organic, so it kind of makes a natural prairie look rather than being all in rows. But we are planting them in somewhat of rows here so we can keep track of what's growing where, and it'll be easier to weed and clean out the things that aren't supposed to be here. So we have black-eyed Susans. These are all Maximilian sunflowers that grew from seed. These were single stalks last year, and look how many stalks each individual plant has. We have purple cone flowers coming up galore. All of these will be in bloom in the next few weeks, and we actually have a few that are in bloom right now. Right over here, as you can see, there is one growing and doing really well. and butterflies and bees are already on it. I just love how beautiful these purple coneflowers are. But if we look here, look at all of these coming up. These are all purple coneflowers. I've been weeding the ragweed out, even though it's a native species, to help promote these beautiful wildflowers. We have prairie coneflower as well. More Maximilians coming up from seed. And I'm hoping with time we'll keep burning this area and letting it recuperate. I bet it will become a beautiful area full of wildflowers. And it'll be a good area to collect seed from and to protect some of these plants. Right here, we have Liatris spicata as well that I planted. I only planted 2 over here, and we're just going to see what would happen. Right over here is an area that actually used to be a road, and it was underneath these large black oaks, and I'm going to show them now. But this area was completely mowed. It was driven through. There were giant holes, and it was because they kept trying to build a road through a marsh. And this marsh, all the rock would sink into it. The cars couldn't get through it. The trucks couldn't get through it. And I was like, how do we just block this area off and create a marsh here and move the road somewhere else? And so we did. All it took is a little bit of persistent begging for it, and now we have it. So I'm going to flip over the camera and just show you how far this thing has come from. I might throw a photo in here of, and I'll do this throughout the whole video, where I'll throw clips of what it used to look like and what it looks like now. But this area has come a long way in just 2 years. 2 years ago, underneath all of these giant black oaks, which are probably well over 100 years old, that one is a giant specimen. There's my giant German Shepherd right next to it. And you can see that is a massive tree. And underneath it was a road. And they used to try to drive through here, but all of it would sink. And so what we did is we made a small parking spot right here, and everything else became habitat. All right, so this is what we're starting with. There's almost nothing here, but just a dead spot. And we're going to check back in about a year. What I've been doing is spreading in wildflowers. So we have snow on the mountain growing here. We have Indian grass, switchgrass. A lot of these right here, like this American ragweed, or this giant ironweed growing here, has spread in. We have sedges, and I've been keeping the non-native grasses out. We have this marsh, which I actually have dug out to make bigger. We have swamp mallows growing in here. We have switchgrass, false sunflowers, more swamp mallows. That is a giant Maximilian sunflower, and I'll show you what it'll look like in the fall. And then a pond cypress as a specimen plant that really would love this boggy soil here. We also have horserush and a ton of other cool species. But if we move right over here, this is exactly where the road used to be. You can kind of see how it used to move right through here. I planted a red bud here as well, and a bald cypress. But we have Maximilian sunflowers, Canadian wild rye, and look at all of these wildflowers. This part gets me excited. Look at all of these. This was all thrown from seed. All of this was seed I just threw down, hoping something would come up. And look at all these prairie coneflowers, just a ton of them. We'll get right down in it and show you all of these from a bug's eye perspective. Just look at how beautiful all these flowers are. We have fleabane that's spreading in here. I love this area. This is one of my favorite new areas of the restoration area. We also have a ton of native things like wing stems, some American giant ragweed, and some other ragweeds growing in here, a ton of sedges. This place is just becoming a biodiversity powerhouse. And right over there, this used to all be Johnson grass. It's been sprayed out, and I seeded it with Maximilian sunflowers and switchgrasses. So I'm hoping with time it comes back as a large native meadow rather than a huge spot of invasive species like Johnson grass. Before this area was dozed about 20 years ago, it was all hardwood bottomland forest. And so these large trees are the remnants. They're ones that weren't bulldozed down, but there were probably dozens of other massive trees that were pushed down in the process to make this area. It was made for a hay meadow, but now that the house is built here, this whole area was not used, and it was just continually being mowed. And so everything you're seeing in this video was just lawn as little as 7 years ago. All right, so this is what we're starting with. There's almost nothing here, but just a dead spot. That shows how fast things can recover. We have purple coneflowers, wild bergamot growing here, some swamp mallows. We have some more white sages, which smell beautiful. We have velvet weed, wing stems, prairie coneflowers, and just look at all of those guys. Look how beautiful that is. All of this was lawn as little as this area was lawn 3 years ago. And I will show some clips right here. I'm going to snap. All right, so this is what we're starting with. There's almost nothing here, but just this whole area you're looking at, this whole lawn used to be bottomland forest. And so we've been planting native species to help bring back it, because I figured if it's a lawn, we might as well have trees for shade. And so we have box elders, shoemart oaks. That's actually just a tall thistle that I've let grow in the yard. That's not even a tree. That is that is a witch hazel tree. This is a black willow I planted on the day of my engagement. It's kind of a symbolic tree we have here in the yard. We have red buds. I did plant a specimen ginkgo right there for funsies. We have serviceberry and another serviceberry, some soap berries I planted, and you can look at all these flowers coming up right here. This is another prairie coneflower, and just look at how many seed heads are still to bloom. We have a purple coneflower there. This is one of those hybrid sunflowers as well. I think they're a cross between a Maximilian sunflower and a sunchoke. Right here we have more Liatris spicata. That is a Jerusalem artichoke growing right there. And we're going to move down through here. But right here we have a flamethrower red, cultivar redbud. It is a native species. We have a bur oak here, a bald cypress there, a tulip poplar, which is in the magnolia family, that are native pretty close over into Arkansas. Right here we have another Oklahoma cultivar redbud. We have smooth sumac, or wing sumac, growing right here, along with that's the wing sumac right here. We also have a smooth sumac growing off in the other areas. We have elderberries planted, wild bergamot. I know these names are overwhelming, but we have so much going on. I'm so excited. It's hard to capture all of this in one video, which I'm not going to be able to. That's why this is a series. Part 2, the first one kind of goes over how it was thought out, what it would be, and kind of mapping the area. So I'm going to link that in right now, and I'll also put it at the end of the video. That way you can click on that and view what this place looked like even 2 years ago, and also has clips of what it looked like before it ever even began becoming what it is today. Here we have one really cool plant. This is an American chestnut, actually, and though they are wiped out from the chestnut blight, I went ahead and got one that I think has been bred to be blight resistant, which really hope so. I'd love to see a giant American chestnut. This is slightly out of their native range, but anywhere these guys can grow and be safe is important, because these are very endangered and they're basically functionally extinct. This area was lawn only 3 years ago as well, and now it's full of a ton of different native grasses and wildflower species, along with some non-natives like these zinnias, which are amazing for cut flowers and for the hummingbirds. We have an Indian blanket flower right there, along with some eastern prickly pear that's to be growing out on this rock. We have a little blue stem and a big blue stem behind there. We have tall, our giant goldenrod. We also have purple cone flowers, snow on the mountain, which are these bluish colored ones, All right, so the camera overheated. We had to go take a quick break. I had some lunch and picked off a bunch of the ticks that were on my body from going down in those areas, and that's why I didn't finish. So we're here at a different hour now. But I was talking about the snow on the mountain growing here. Beautiful annuals that seed like crazy and spread all over the place. We started with a few of them, and they come back thicker and thicker every year, kind of like the golden crown beard as well. We have a bunch of cool stiff goldenrod here. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the fact that we have so many ticks. Now, ticks are an important and essential part of an ecosystem, as they give food for amphibians, birds, and other things, as well as the spread of disease that they create actually helps with natural selection, thinning populations of animals, along with humans if we're part of that, and we get those diseases. But they get a really bad rap, are an essential part of a healthy ecosystem, and the fact that we have so many shows that our ecosystems are very healthy. Now, we have a lot going on here. These are all going to be blooming in the next few weeks, but we have purple cone flowers going crazy. We have showy goldenrod, a ton of tall goldenrod. We have ironweed, Illinois bundle flowers. We have monarda, purple cone flowers, a ton of these lace leaf coreopsis, which are going out of bloom. They were in full bloom a few weeks ago. If we move over here, we have more blazing stars, and this is our new short bed that we just added this year, and it's already got Indian blanket flowers in it that we planted. We have some young ones that are just coming up, along with a lot of really cool plants to see up here that are kind of specimen plants. We have some eastern prickly pear here in this pot. I'm going to try not to step on anybody. We have some blazing stars. These are the spotted blazing stars. They're rather short in comparison to the others. We actually have an agave that I planted here. It's not native, but I think it'd be a cool specimen plant. We have another blue spike yucca, which will get rather large. And this beautiful white coneflower, which is actually just a purple coneflower that's been cultivated to be white. And this guy is absolutely stunning, has a ton of blooms along with these purple ones. We have orange ones there and a red one there. Kind of making this a collection of the cultivars, purple coneflowers right here. We have a ton of Asclepia tuberosa that's going out of bloom. Some of them are just about to bloom. It depends on when they were grown. We have penstemons and purple poppy mallow, along with more pink ladies. But these purple poppy mallows are kind of, it's planted up here and it's spreading out through these zinnias here. And you can see that beautiful magenta flower. There's a little grasshopper inside of it taking a nap. We have some bora planted here that's cultivared. And this whole area, this fire pit, and we'll come inside of it. Some hyssop, some Arkansas blue stars, bushy blue stem, switchgrass, big blue stem as well. Japanese maple as an accent plant. And if you come inside, this little bubble here is protected from the wind during the winter time when we have our fire pits here. And look at all this giant switchgrass around us. So right over here, the bergamot's kind of taken over and switchgrass isn't doing so good. But if we move right here to this, look at how big this switchgrass is. And it makes a really nice wind block in the winter time when we're having fires. We normally chop it back so it's not a fire hazard so much, but it's enough to block the wind. We move right here, we have some giant blue sage that I'm trying out this year. It might need to be moved, it's already getting so big. This is a native species. There's a big blue, or a little blue stem here. Salvia cochineal here, the hummingbirds love this along with a lot of the butterflies and bees. This is an annual flowering salvia that we have here. We have some blazing stars that I put inside of this pot here, or the Phlianthus spicata. Just a cool little salvia here to go along with these native salvias. A tree cholla in a pot would be growing. Purple cone flowers. This red bud grew up from seed 3 years ago, and we're letting it grow here as a nice shade tree. We also have some American wisteria that I'm kind of spreading out. This American wisteria is slightly outside of its native range here. It grows over in Arkansas, and we're in Oklahoma, on eastern Oklahoma, so we're pretty close to its native range. It's throwing up some more blooms, but here about a month ago, it was completely covered in blooms, and I'll throw a clip of that in as well. Okay. Here we have some remnants of these large black oaks and pin oaks that were growing here. And underneath it, I've created an understory of a bunch of different species of plant, from wing stems, mountain mints, some wild roses. We also have some non-native some irises planted there. We have some Arkansas blue stars that have gotten really big over here that'll be really pretty in the fall. We have a cultivar red bud here, along with a button bush, which is native. We have some Turk's cap coming up, some red twig dogwoods, some other red twig dogwoods over there, some oak leaf hydrangeas, and a bunch of other really cool stuff. This is a sweet bay magnolia. It's native just over into, I think, Arkansas, into the deep south, and it does really well here. It doesn't get too large. It has the best smelling fragrant blooms on it in the early spring. They're kind of fizzling out now as it's getting hotter. I have a little story to go along with this. I'll try to make it quick. But about 3 or 4 years ago, we had these swallows show up. They're barn swallows, and they need human support to survive now. They use houses and other infrastructure that humans build to build their nests. You can find them in the wild, but a lot of times they'll be underneath bridges, on barns, on houses. And I told my mom, hey, stop knocking down those nests. Those nests, not only does every single nest have 2 clutches a year of 4 to 5 babies, and we'll show some of those clips right now. We have all of these nests coming around here, and we've gone from a population of about 5 barn swallows to about 80 barn swallows. And they come back thicker and thicker every year, and they start making their nests around here. They really don't harm anything. The poop comes down, and you fertilizes like that wild germander right there, blooming there. That's a mint species that's come in. If you'll zoom in on that talon, look at all that mint that's just come in through a little bit of soil I brought up here on accident. But it's an awesome species. It smells really nice and has those beautiful white blooms. But all that poop that falls out of the nest fertilizes this stuff here, and they are a natural pest control. So we have a lot of insects here as we have all this restoration area. But each of those birds eat roughly 1,000 insects a day, the majority of those being mosquitoes. And so we have no mosquito problems here. Sometimes as the sun starts to set and they go to sleep and the bats are just coming out, we do get some, but the bats come out and eat 1,000 insects an hour. And I actually heard some last night flying around. They're not in my bat house yet, but they're definitely living off in those big creeks down in those trees. But it's really cool to see and allow these ecosystems to just coexist with us right here up close. This is things everyone can do. If you see these mud nests on your house, don't knock them down. Let them have their babies, and you will have free pest control. So actually, these nests are currently empty. All their fledglings have already happened. They're probably laying new babies now to have their second clutch this year. So these guys migrate to South America during the winter months and then come back and have their babies here in the spring and summer. And they have 2 clutches a year. They mate for life. You'll have 2 of them that'll be in each nest, and they'll have roughly 10 babies a year. So the population can increase rapidly, and we want that to happen so we don't have so many mosquitoes. So here we have another entrance into the restoration area, and I have small mowed trails, and we're going to go down through this. But right now it's really hot outside. It's nicer here in the shade, and the phone keeps overheating, the camera keeps overheating, and that just is causing issues. I have some, they haven't came up this year yet, and I don't know if they will, but we have some passion vines planted here to grow up this trellis, which is just a panel turned on its side. But right here we have an American wisteria that I planted that I'm hoping to train down this as time goes on. I've already shown these, but we have this coneflower here. We have another purple coneflower right here. This is prairie coneflower. They're different species. As we keep moving down the hill, there's a lot to see down here where all this forest is healing and coming back rapidly. So this right here is a hickory tree. These are the hardest wood in Oklahoma and very important ecologically, as a lot of critters use their leaves to, like butterflies, to they lay their caterpillars on these leaves, and they also drop a ton of nuts in the fall for a lot of the birds, the deer, the squirrels, and other things like that. We move along, we have a Jerusalem artichoke right there, some tall thistles. We have a bit of Johnson grass that I'm, spraying as we move along through here and trying to get rid of it. We have much less than we had last year in this area. We have partridge key starting to come up, which was a flower that with the yellow flowers are coming up all throughout here, but a lot of them aren't blooming yet. Got a tick on me right now. Okay, keep moving down through here. This is where a lot of the fireflies hang out. There's a ton of leaf litter from these large sycamores. So that's not Maryland, that's a different sycamore tree, and it is just as massive as that one over there is. It doesn't lean over. We had another really big one that was in there, and the top of it snapped over during that storm, but it's coming back from its trunk. So we still have a beast of a trunk down there. Right here, there's a young sycamore coming up. And these are all hickories and pecans. I think all of these right here are hickory trees. We have coral berries growing here and a lot of other cool species. And we keep moving along. One day, this entire trail we're staying on will be completely covered. In shade. And so like right here, we have one of the black oaks. It's a sapling growing up. This one is probably about 5 or 6 years old. It's getting taller than me. And we really want those oaks, as a lot of our oaks here in North America are declining in their health and numbers due to the absence of fire, because a lot of them are very fire adapted. Here's a young one coming up through a dead tree, actually. If we keep moving through, there's a giant big blue stem, I think is what that is, growing right there underneath this pecan tree. So you can see grasses can still grow right up underneath them. If we keep moving through here, this is just completely covered in fireflies. Almost so many at night, you can see your way through the forest because there's so many fireflies. It really reminds me of Avatar. Right here we have a young sycamore growing up. It's actually quite old, but it keeps dying as we burn this and dying to the ground and growing back. So this tree's only 2 years old. 2 years ago when we burned, it died to the ground and came back. So everything you see has grown in the past 2 years. So these trees grow really rapidly with the amount of water we have down at this creek. And here comes to one of the devastation areas. And I'm going to say that because this large tree, the one I started the video with, broke, and this is one of its large branches. And I'm risking it all. I'm going to get ticks all over me for this. So please like this video because I'm risking a lot doing this. But this is actually one of the branches that fell off of it. It's as big as a full-grown tree. And we have fungus growing all over them, breaking it down. Vines are growing over. This is all wild American grapes growing here, which will be awesome for the birds. We have pokeweed right here, which will produce toxic berries to humans, but actually be edible into the winter months for the birds. They also turn bright red in the fall. Sedges coming up because we got rid of the Johnson grass here. We also have some Cerisa, which sometimes I pull it if it's an area like this to help. If you can just get it pulled and let other things take over it, sometimes it gets shaded out. Other times it's more of an issue and we got to come and spray it. But like here's a passion vine, and if I were to spray the Cerisa, I would kill the passion vine in the process. So let's just try to pull this Cerisa, because it's the only one I see in this area. Boom. That's out of the way now. Here's another one right here. Okay. We have Virginia creeper crawling all throughout the forest floor here, and American or giant ironweeds. Let's hope the camera doesn't overheat. Right here we have a giant Indian grass. There was actually Johnson grass all around it, and I was able to spray out the Johnson grass and not get the Indian grass because the spray I use does harm those kind of things. Right here's a little partridge pea growing up. These are Virginia creepers. Virginia creepers have 5 leaves. Poison ivy has 3 leaves. So this one has 5 lobes. So we're good. There is some poison ivy growing inside here, and I normally leave it because it is beneficial for the birds, and as long as I can identify it, I'm the only one who really comes down here. It's not harming much. We have some tall goldenrod here. It's absolutely beautiful. If we turn the camera around, we can see these. That's another large sycamore coming up. We have an American elm, which are on the decline, so that's awesome seeing that growing here. Kentucky coffee trees, some gum trees, a couple of those. We have, these are all large pecans coming up here. And this whole area will one day be forest, is my hope, that this entire clearing becomes nice thick woods to help out the fireflies and other species. If we keep moving, we come to a big problem area, an area that I'm gonna have to spray because there's just so much of it. And this is all Cerisa lesbideza. It is very annoying and helps, and it outcompetes things like this Asclepia viridis growing on the edge of it. If I don't do anything in a couple years, this will all be dead, along with all the other native grasses trying to come up with it. And scraps that we get in the yard to help give areas for bugs to live in and other things to grow out of, to help break down and create new soil here, because that's what all that's gonna do. If we look right here, here's another huge clump of Asclepia viridis, the milkweed, scattered into all of this Cerisa. And like I said, I can pull it, but there's just so much of it coming up. Pulling only does so much because it will come back from its root system. I'm gonna have to get in and spray it here at the end of fall. But for right now, we can help maintain and mitigate it, because like right here, there's some native sedges growing up right next to it. We have some broom sedge. Here's another oak. This is a pin oak that came off of this big tree that died here. We have so much cool stuff going on. I planted a black cherry tree up here, which is another native species that we don't have here. So that'll help improve the biodiversity all throughout this area. So right now I'm sitting in the remnant of an ancient prairie. These are mostly Indian grasses, and as you can see, these are some of their stems. There's actually switchgrass, there's Indian grass throughout here. And by the end of the summer, it'll be taller than me standing up. It'll be about this tall, and right now I'd be completely hidden. It creates a maze and a mosaic of things for like bobwhite quail and meadowlarks to be able to evade predators, and has created this awesome ecosystem. And we're gonna continue burning and not allowing trees to grow within this stretch. If you'll pan the camera that way. And if you'll pan the camera back that way, this entire hillside will always be prairie. You can see the trees and the forest coming up from those sycamores. Those will be the only ones I allow to grow. Directly behind me, I have one cottonwood that I'm allowing to grow. Everything else I'm not gonna allow to grow because we don't have a lot of cottonwood. That's why I'm allowing it to go here. Right here we have another issue, if you'll come along with me. And this is how thick it'll get. This is what I'm talking about. It just really has to be sprayed. It's invading upwards towards all of my native grasses, and I do not appreciate that. But if we come right here, this is where the water is. And this is why it's prospering. Now this is not the creek. This is a tributary to the main creek. This is a smaller stream that runs about 6 months out of the year. And right now we do have water flowing. Can you see that, Talon? We have water flowing into this area. I've been throwing a lot of debris in here to help stop erosion. As you can see, the bank was washing out. And so I've been throwing a lot of branches to stop that. But you can see right here, there is the large forest. And if you look back this way, there's more forest coming. And all of that right there is hemp dogbane. There's a ton of cool things like some coral berries and some poison ivy, actually, some button bushes, and sadly, Johnson grass. Right here, we have Chickasaw plums growing up. Those are an awesome species. Hopefully one day they'll get big enough to outcompete the Johnson grass. And there's my cottonwood. Dispersed within all of this Cerisa, we have Illinois bundle flowers. That's why it's so important for us to try to get rid of the Cerisa, so things like these native Illinois bundle flowers can grow. We have some primroses that gone to seed last year coming up in here. We have a ton of milkweed and American ironweed growing up, or giant ironweed growing up, American elm, a pecan, more pecans, and there's Johnson grass and cerisa all in here that I'm really needing to get out, because if we don't, all of that will disappear and it will become just solid hedges of cerisa and Johnson grass. That is it for today's video. I'm going to bring you updates in the fall to show you what's happening later on in the year. I'm going to throw a ton of cool clips throughout there of things that have been going on for the past year or so within this area, along with maybe right now I'll throw in some winter clips of what this place looks like when it's covered in snow. And I'd like to do seasonal videos one day where I do videos documenting it in the winter, spring, summer, and fall throughout these areas. But I can't do that without your guys' support. So if you've watched this video and you've enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Subscribing helps this channel more than anything. If we get more of a following, we can one day make money. And if we make money, every single dime this channel ever makes will be put right back into restoring nature and restoring the natural world for future generations, to help the biodiversity crisis and to help educate people on how to do this at their own homes and their own properties, to help all of our endangered species and species that are on the decline, like turkeys, bobwhite quail, meadowlarks. Those are just the birds. If we talk about reptiles, the bullfrogs, the leopard frogs, all of them need our help, and they don't have language to speak to us to say, hey, stop doing this. So I'm here to try to advocate for them and advocate for the natural world, because I'm tired of seeing it being destroyed for housing developments. Please leave comments if you have any questions or concerns or things you are curious about in this video that I didn't mention. With that, have a great rest of your day.